For the unfamiliar, seeing The Legend of Zelda for the first time, many people might think that Link is actually Zelda.
She's just fierce. Look at that. Go, girl. Amazing. Yeah.
With dozens of games in the series now, there have been very few games with the name Link in the title. Instead, the legend has always been about Zelda and how Link gets roped into saving her, so we can't blame the ignorant for not knowing what's going on. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom flips the formula on its head as Princess Zelda sets off to save the kingdom of Hyrule instead of Link. Believe it or not, but this sort of thing could have easily have happened in the past, but somehow Link has always managed to avoid danger. This time, however, he wasn't so lucky. After being consumed by a rift and leaving Zelda behind with no clue of what's going on, she now has to piece together the mystery surrounding Link's disappearance while helping cure the land of these purple ruptures that have formed. The story is quite simple and I didn't expect anything more. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom plays into the series' biggest strengths to deliver an adventure that feels familiar while at the same time refreshing. Zelda treks across Hyrule to the usual outposts to help the usual Gorons and Zora people while gathering rupees to buy new stuff, trapping fairies in bottles, fighting off moblins and solving puzzles across vast dungeons. But where the game brings the new is in the form of a magical floating globe thing called Tri and its rod. This rod can learn echoes, and using Tri's powers, Zelda can create these echoes anywhere and at any time. Is this Tears of the Kingdom levels of customization? Not so much, but it is enough to make Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom incredibly fun. The biggest sell here is that The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom will likely play out differently for each player. As I explored the kingdom, I found echoes that I used throughout the game. The order in which I found these echoes were all dependent on the quest direction I took first. So if you venture off the path or decide to take a different quest, you'll likely have a different set of echoes compared to what I used in the beginning of the game, for example. This is important because echoes are everything. They are the monsters you can summon to help fight other monsters, furniture you can use to get over gaps, and items you can place down to help solve puzzles. However, exploration is likely where they are the most helpful. Using them to reach higher ledges is all about learning what height is what object, and using the best selection of echoes to build a makeshift pathway up to your goal. At first, the game can feel a bit restrictive with the system. You only have a few echoes for the first few hours of the game, but after a while you'll have a few dozen to choose from, and they are all incredibly fun to use. Of course, I found myself sticking to certain echoes over others. I'm sure you'll likely do the same. I love the bats, even though they were useless and weak at times. The trampoline also made jumping around fun, and the pea hat is a powerful flying seed that just knocked enemies around. I did feel like the echoes put me in a box, however. As much as the game pushed me to be creative with them, once I had a selection of favorites, I just stuck with them and I didn't really care about what else I found. The water block, for example, is the most OP of all parkour echoes. You can place down literal blocks of water and swim through them. This meant I could place down 4 or 5 blocks and make a tower into the sky where I could swim through and reach almost every location. But at the same time, the game really doesn't care if you abuse the system, if there is a system there to abuse in the first place. It simply wants you to have fun, even if this means using the same echoes for everything you do. So I spend most of my time in Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom spamming bat spawns and placing down water blocks. And that's okay because it didn't take away from the game. Bind is another ability that Zelda gets from Tri. This let me toss Tri forward and link it to the rod and Zelda. Essentially, this sticks her to objects and let me move around with them and even take on the motion of the object. So if I use Bind on a bird, for example, and followed its movement, I would fly around in the air with it. This was also helpful at times when I had to cross large areas, also a key mechanic in puzzle solving. However, often you could just use echoes to do the same thing. Most of the time, echoes can solve everything, so Bind wasn't always top of my mind, but the option to approach the puzzles and dungeons gives The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom its creative charm. The game's excitement is only as good as your approach to whatever challenge you're facing. Even with the same echoes, the Kingdom of Hyrule is pure joy to explore. The map is crammed full of little areas to venture to, dungeons to get through, and side quests to take on. Granted, these side quests are straightforward, but they do add life to the game's world. Then there's the Still World, which is accessed by opening up portals to the purple ruptures in the area. These dungeons feature upside down and back to front assets that have been brilliantly placed down to cause an obstacle course Zelda has to get through. Enemies knocked me off ledges while I scurried about to place down echoes in order to reach Tri's trapped friends and free them. These areas offered quite a lot of depth to them, especially when they were tied to a larger rift. However, there are smaller optional rifts scattered around too. Some areas are completely optional, but they rewarded me with important materials such as might crystals and ingredients. Might crystals let me enhance Zelda's sword fighting form. This ability let me switch to a Link-like fighter to slash enemies up and use other weapons, which I won't spoil here. This form is what it would be like if Zelda was the green-capped hero with a powerful sword instead of Link, because without echoes, she is pretty powerless. The form does have limited use though. Energy depletes over time and Zelda can renew this with blue crystals or by drinking certain smoothies. This form can be leveled up too using the crystals, which are found everywhere. If you search hard enough, you'll come across them all the time. Sometimes I just picked up a rock and I found one hidden underneath. It made me want to explore the map right from top to bottom. Speaking of which, crafting is also a big deal in The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. By using ingredients, I was able to mix up stuff to make a drink. Granted, the depth of the system isn't as robust as Tears of the Kingdom with only 16 ingredients, but the mix and matching of items to make cool recipes was a fun mechanic. I was often reminded of a link between worlds when playing The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Not only does the rift mechanic feel familiar, but the game's world and the need to go everywhere felt the same. I wanted to explore every dungeon and climb every hill. The echoes made this all possible, and there were very few times where I was limited to where I could go. If this happened, I simply returned after upgrading Tri's ability to make more echoes. After hours of exploring and enjoying the world, I felt as if The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom was a well-packaged adventure. It wasn't as large as Tears of the Kingdom, and that's okay. The size suits the scale of the story, and there's a lot of charm to enjoy, which has been poured into every system. I did struggle with some performance issues on the Switch however. The game's frame rate does drop at times. This is noticeable in outdoor areas with lots of detail. The same issues were found in Link's Awakening, but given the similar engine, I guess there's just a hardware limitation happening here, but it didn't take away from the experience at all. I could say that The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom is likely one of my favorite Zelda games, mainly because it tries to do something new and it works. Zelda being the star of the show here adds more than just the princess to the cover of the game. She forced me to adapt to a new Hyrule where she wasn't all powerful and able. Her inexperience isn't seen as a weakness, but instead as an opportunity to grow the game into a fresh new direction, and these mechanics all add enjoyment to the adventure. Echoes of Wisdom also doesn't want to be a game made for a certain demographic because of its female lead. Unlike Princess Peach Showtime, which kind of felt like a game made for younger audiences, this Zelda adventure is whimsical at times and at other times grown up. It fits into the series perfectly and I think you'll find a lot of enjoyment here. It is an adventure you'll likely binge through and return much later for a few more playthroughs. So those are my thoughts on The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Are you picking the game up? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks to Nintendo for sending the Switch code for me to review. While you're here, please do consider liking and subscribing for more gaming tech news and reviews. Until next time, farewell.